straight into the Prada runway show. So let's start by talking about Prada. Now, Prada is very interesting because I think ever since Raf Simons and Miuccia Prada have sort of been joint creative directors at Prada, they've had this balancing act that they've had to do. And I feel like at the start, they really struggled with that. One show would look a bit too Raf, another show would look a bit too Miuccia. But I think they've gotten to the point now where they've kind of found a really nice middle ground where you can see like their DNA across the recent collections, but also it's kind of like neutral in the same way. And they're also channeling the minimalism of Prada. And in some ways, here and there, channeling the ugly chic. So I found that, really interesting with Prada. Now, this collection, the Spring Summer 24 menswear collection, was actually titled Fluid Form. And if I was to describe kind of and summarize what this collection was about, it's really about this idea of clothes as an architecture around the body and finding freedom in that. Now, I think there was a missed opportunity in the fact that they didn't show a lot of different bodies. There wasn't a lot of body diversity in a runway show where the main theme is about clothing as an architecture around the body. It's a bit odd to have, to me at least, that sort of theme and only focus on one type of body or one type of fashion. To me, that was a bit odd. So that was one criticism I definitely had. But what I'm going to do is read the show notes, and then we're going to watch the runway show, and I'm basically going to explain through the runway show kind of what's happening. So these right here are the show notes. Now, to read kind of parts of the show notes that I think are relevant and sort of break them down. One is the first statement where it says, an examination of fluid architecture around the human body. The Spring-Summer 24 Prada menswear collection by Miuccia Prada and Raf Simons proposes an absolute freedom of the body, expressed through the foundations of the garments that clothe it. Now, to go on, so let me just get this a bit bigger so people can read it. Okay, so it says, the shirt is a point of departure. Its structure and details borrowed as a base to transform an entire stable of menswear. Suits, raincoats, active sportswear, reporter jackets, reconsidered construction, reconstructed. Beginning with simplicity, the collection proposes a notion of expansion, amplification of an idea, a paradox between silhouette and materiality. The ultimate aim is a constant awareness of the body within and its liberation. Now, to kind of break that point down, so when you look at this collection, and we're about to look through it, there is sort of like this base thing that's going on. So there's like a base design which they built upon. There's like a base silhouette. So it's this elongated sleeves, cinched waist, boxy shoulders, padded shoulders. That is the base in which every single garment in this collection was built upon. And that is such an interesting idea because it's kind of like tailoring manipulation. They're building every garment from a shirt, from a silhouette of a shirt that they've created, that base silhouette of the shirt they've created, and they've transformed that into everything possible, from vests to jackets to raincoats to other different types of shirts. And I thought that was quite interesting. And I think further on in the show notes, they kind of talk about this. So to go on, it says, a fluidity questions the conventional language of rigid tailoring. Centrally, qualities of lightness and softness are brought to garments throughout, creating a fluctuating rapport between the body and its clothes. These ideas infiltrate every aspect of dress. Headbands and eyewear, molded of singular pieces, appear like captured fragments of motion. Leather bags are unexpectedly softened to the touch. There's a presence through absence. Silhouettes borrow their lines from masculine suiting, but their structure contradicts with an intrinsic flexibility. Shirted construction transposes to tailored garments, reconstructing the archetypal silhouettes with a new fragility. This is like a tongue twister. Oh my word. Tailoring elements may be proposed on cotton poplin in true hybrid garments that exist in a new space between understood sartorial disciplines. purpose and function can be fundamentally challenged, evolving the idea of expansion to elaboration. Decoration is three-dimensional, reinventing the idea of a floral print through applications of corsages and fringe, animating the static. That is, they're talking about like when you look at the show, you'll see like the floral embellishments. So they're kind of just giving a commentary on that. In extending this idea, utilitarian pockets are alienated from their function to act rather as further decorative devices. That's really interesting that they're saying that all the pockets that were added in some of the pieces aren't for function. And it's so weird that you have brands, let's say like Alyx, that we're going to talk about later, where Alyx kind of have, you know, the utilitarianism, but it's actually about function, but Prada isn't about function. I just find that really interesting. By the way, I'm going to show the imagery after. I just want to go through the show notes and explain it because I'm going to reference them again when we're going through the runway video. So I'm just adding context to what's going on. And it says the concept of fluidity framing the human form again expands, represented through the show space and the deposito of the Fondazione Prada. Abstract walls are evoked through fluid interruptions, forming an ever-shifting enfilade through which the models process. These clothes are ultimately reflective of our natural state, the dynamic movement and constant transformation inherent to humanity. So yeah, that's basically the show notes. Now, I will keep referencing those as I go through the runway show, which is why it's really important that I had to kind of show you that first. I know Dami was like, oh, show the imagery. I will. The reason why I have to put the show notes while you can read it is so that you can read along as I'm going through. I feel like sometimes it's easier to read things when you can listen to me, but also, you know, like at the same time, kind of listen. So let's just get the Prada on the screen, the Prada runway show. One day I'm going to be famous enough to like have people working on this for me. So that is kind of like this piece here is an idea of the Prada silhouette that everything is built upon. So you can see the elongated sleeves, you can see the cinched waist, and every piece kind of follows the idea, which I found really interesting. So manipulating every single piece based off of one silhouette. This piece was actually quite big because people were talking about the fringe shirts and also the floral embellishments that are on the shirt. It was kind of interesting too, because like half of the collection was like really print heavy, and then half of it was just like really black. And to sort of further talk about the collection, you can see like some weird, slimy sort of substance coming from the ceiling. And that actually is a reference to aliens. Now, if you look through this collection, there are actually many references to aliens. Of course, the collection is titled Fluid Form, and it is about like different forms. But there is sort of like an artist, I guess you can say, called H.R. Geiger, who birthed this sort of, what can you call it? It's like a being called a xenomorph, which is like this sort of alien that he created. And it's this alien silhouette that is used across the Alien film franchise. So if you guys have watched the film, you know, Aliens versus Predators, that was a film that I used to watch when I was younger. It was a really, really cool film. That was kind of the xenomorph sort of being was kind of depicted in that movie alongside a lot of the other alien movies. So that was a big reference. And they actually printed this xenomorph on one of the pieces, which I'll show you after, alongside a lot of the embellishments and other things along those lines. She said this is the slime show. Yeah, it's the slime show. So that's why there is slime. I was just adding context to that. I like those pieces, by the way. I'm not sure if you guys caught that. I might have to bring it back, but I like how she has these things that are just like tiny, you know, changes of classic tailoring and classic silhouette. So if I go back here, I'll show you. If you look at this polo shirt here, there are just some nice fur trimmings on the shoulders and on the sleeves. I thought that's just an interesting touch that can turn a polo shirt into something that is quite interesting. The long sleeves are giving Ariana Grande. The thing about the long sleeves is that for someone like me, the silhouette is perfect because I have really long arms and I have a short torso. So any type of silhouette that has elongated sleeves with a short body is just like perfect. It's gonna maybe look a bit oversized on some people, but for me, it's going to look completely fine. But as you can see, every single piece in the collection is built upon this idea and silhouette of a shirt that's elongated with a cinched waist and shoulders. And it's just this idea that you can manipulate the same garment in multiple different ways to look completely different depending on what you're designing. I thought that was quite a good idea. And I think Mucha Prada and Ras Simmons, as far as the menswear shows go, have made Prada really interesting because I remember how much I used to complain about how dead Prada was from a menswear perspective. The women's wear sensational, the menswear not so much. It was never really that fantastic. It was almost like an afterthought. And the thing about women's wear is, even though I would personally wear women's wear, I just can't fit into any of it because I'm too big for any women's wear size, which is why I always have to look for menswear shows. So yeah, I really like that. I can repurpose my charity shop French cut shirts and coats by leaving the sleeves open now. I also like the accessories. That was something that when I saw the show, I was quite interested in looking at because every brand is kind of fighting for the new it bag for men in fashion, which is something that doesn't come around often. For women, there's always like an it bag, but for men, it's almost doesn't really exist unless you think of like the Alyx chest rig or like certain types of like holder bags. But I feel like they propose a lot of very interesting bags that you hold on the shoulder, messenger type bags with cargo pockets. I think these are kind of cool things, and they're kind of like, because I feel like in menswear you want bags that are very utilitarian. A lot of all these things at the base of it, they're very genderless, but it's really, when I think of like guys, like I can't wear a women's wear bag because I feel like every single bag that's made for women is too tiny and it's just not utilitarian enough for me to carry. Like I carry my laptop in my bag and my camera everywhere I go, so I need a lot of space. And I have like a 16-inch MacBook, so I'm not going to be carrying a Jacquemus bag around and anything's going to fit in there. And I feel like this collection, especially, they presented a lot of very good utilitarian big bags that actually look very nice and are aesthetically pleasing, which was very nice to see. Said over the last 4 years, has there been an it bag for men? Yeah, that's why I said the Alyx chest rig. That was the last thing that I think was like huge, like like it was big in menswear. If they want to make an it bag for the stereotypical male buyer, an elevated side bag would be the route I think would make sense. Yeah, I totally agree. I agree. We calling them it bags though, even that's still like 2019. Yeah, I guess we can call them it bags. I guess we can. So yeah, that's the collection. It's very straightforward. I think once you understand the idea, I don't think there's that much to it. It's just about, once again, about clothes as an architecture around the body. Like I said earlier, I think it was kind of a missed opportunity that you're talking about clothes as an architecture around the body. You're talking about how kind of like a commentary on silhouette and form, and you're using this idea of a shirt that you can transform into blazers and into jackets and into different types of shirts and into cargo vests and things like that. And you didn't add a diversity of bodies when the theme is bodies. It's just a bit odd. By the way, Mucha Prada and Raf Simons outfits in these are really nice. I just thought I'd add that. I like Raf Simons' jacket. So what did you guys think about the collection in general? I'll also post the link for anyone that wants to hop in. If you're not feeling shy, then you can hop in and share your thoughts quickly. But what I want to do now is go through some of the detail shots on Vogue Runway, and then we'll go through the looks and some other stuff that were on the Instagram page. I'll also show you because on Days they had a really, really good image of the xenomorph print that I want to show you guys on the screen right now. So if you look at the screen now, that right there is the xenomorph print. So that is, they literally just printed it. I don't know how I feel about how brands these days, they just reference things so plainly. Like it's so easy to just be like, I'm inspired by this Swedish artist in the 15th century. We're just going to take an image of something that he designed and print it on a shirt. That, to me, I feel like they're just more intelligent ways of using a reference. Of course, one of the ways they did that was also by having the alien slime and kind of like the set, being a bit dystopian in a way. But I just feel like there are better ways to reference the xenomorph than just actually just printing it on a shirt directly. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? This is funny. I think the funny thing about them talking about liberating the human body and an alien and being literally breaks out of the body. Yeah, the fact that aliens are beings that break out of the body, that's funny. I think that Raf as a designer ended a few years ago. I don't think so. I think Raf has a lot of good ideas still. I feel like we need more discovery in a sense of like having a reverence, but being more subtle, having people have to think about it. Yeah, I agree. I just think that, not that it's too obvious, but I just think it takes no thought to, take a reference and just print it on a shirt like this. And while I appreciate the reference, it's just a bit like anyone literally can do that. Like I can literally find any artist in the world right now and just take their painting and print it on a shirt and say it's a collab. It's a reference, but it's not like an intelligent reference, if that makes sense. But in terms of the collection, I did really like it. A lot of people said that it was boring. In my opinion, Prada is minimal anyway. That's just what Prada is. Like, if you're expecting a lot of print and a lot of like crazy colors, you get that sometimes with Prada, but Prada is minimal. That is what Prada is. It's understated, luxury, chic. That is kind of what Prada has always been. And I do sometimes find it a bit strange when people say, "Oh, this collection was like really plain," or "This collection was really like boring." It's like, yeah, but that is Prada. That's what Prada is. Um, so it's just a bit odd. Oh yeah, someone said the Telfar bag. Yeah, the Telfar bag is probably the latest like it bag for men because a lot of men do buy Telfar bags, and I think that goes again to it being very practical and utilitarian. I feel like a lot of guys carry loads of. I don't know why guys are like that. It's so weird, but like men's bags tend to be a lot bigger and not nice looking at all. They're just like sacks. Which is why actually I feel like it's kind of hard to have a nice bag in menswear that everyone buys because 9 times out of 10, if you make a bag that's like really big, it's going to look like a sack. So they buy the big one, bro. Hello, hello.
Oh, damn. Wait, let me mute you on my computer first. Yeah, what's good? Yeah.
How are you? What does he think of the Prada collection?
The Prada collection, particularly, I think it was pretty Prada in terms
Mm,
of like just like in what we know for Prada today. It's like regular, I guess. Like that's the most that I can actually say about it in terms of like if I have an overall arcing thought. But the one thing that I did want to say was in the references for the xenomorph and like the painting,
mm,
I've noticed that the consumer prefers on the nose referencing, and
really?
like it's almost weird to like put it like that. However, the idea of someone convoluting referencing like makes people seem like tryhards.
Do you think
If
so?
you understand what I mean. Yeah, so like there's an adaptability to it where like obviously me personally, I don't believe that you need to what's it called? Just take the painting and print it on a shirt. Like you could do something a little bit more creative with it. So that's one thing. However, the idea of this, the level of effort put into a certain type of design that is like, oh, you have to go 3 layers deep into the creative mind of the artist. There is a consumer, or should I say, the more mass consumer that isn't really endeared to that, right? So let's go for like something that's a little bit more to like an overly commercial version. Let's say the Loewe and the Spirited Away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they just printed things on the bags basically and the clothes and everything like that. Like and that's the same thing with the One Piece collaborations, so on and so forth. Now, when we start talking about this particular reference, the fact that you actually have to even go to the 15th century, 16th century is even enough.
No.
Because
I was just making a point, but yeah,
no, I
that
mean
was just
like
me
that's
making a
that's a
point. Yeah,
deep reference
yeah.
to a lot of people that don't know Alien like we do.
Hmm.
Like if you speak to a 19-year-old today and ask if they've watched Alien versus Predator, I don't know. It will
It's the
be,
film is not that old. Obviously, the Alien series of films are quite old. I think they
bro. It's
started in
older
like
than me.
1979 or something,
It's
and they've
older
just
than
had
me.
loads of films. But why I said Alien versus Predator is because it's more the more recent ones that was quite box office.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if people can
No,
remember like that, because I it was huge when I watched it. It was like everyone was
yeah,
talking about that movie.
yeah. No, like, but you're right in many regards in like the terms. I just have an understanding of the consumer today and like what people decide to is allowed or what they will allow for trying hard.
Hmm.
And because that reference is
So you
quite
think that
old,
consumers, if you make a like let's say a more intelligent reference than just like printing stuff on a garment, people think
mhm.
you're trying too hard.
No, I think that the depth of the reference material, like, so the depth of this reference material used in the show is quite old. So
Mm,
you actually need to go look, right? So there is some depth to there. However, the application of that depth also needs a level of simplicity that is allowed because now if you have to say that, like if you take
hmm
a level of abstraction and then you blow it up and then you start creating like different prints on it and everything like that, then when you go to the source material,
hmm
someone's going to have to decipher that. And if the consumer has to look and then decipher, I think that's a little bit too much.
Yeah.
I like it's not a it's not what's it called? That's not what the consumer necessarily wants to do. The consumer doesn't want to do some art project. They're not a
Do you
curator.
reckon if like it depends on the designer? Because I feel like designers like sometimes JW Anderson makes some like super intelligent references where I'm really like scratching my head trying to understand it. Or
Okay.
like Tebe Magugu has
No,
those kind
see,
of references.
yeah,
And I don't think people
yeah.
say those designers try hard
No,
necessarily.
but their audience is also quite smaller, right? And
Right.
they're a
Right.
little bit more abstract, right? So in term and what Prada is does have that minimalism to there. So it's and Prada almost always tries to seem effortless. So there is, a little bit of coding in there. But when it comes to JW Anderson, he's probably one of the more intelligent designers that we have. And I love his designs for that. However, the application of particular source materials for Loewe and JW Anderson, because there's a little bit of whimsy there, and because I understand Loewe a little bit more, I know that there is a clientele for that, right? And I've been talking about this quite luxury thing for a minute, but just to be very quick with it, the consumer for Loewe is way different from the consumer to Prada, right? But the
hmm
main thing to that is that when you look at the demographics, it's from what I understand, from what someone I've heard from many people, the consumer for Loewe is the person that goes to art galleries, curators, all of these other things, goes to art openings, goes to art
Mm-hmm.
fairs, like has these branches and all of these things that is like a little bit more of a carefree character that is in that art sphere. Now, I wouldn't say that that type of person is the same type of person as a Prada person, which could be someone who's just doing utility and then going for a pop of color,
Right.
because Prada is not pushing this abstraction to the nth degree, and I kind of am endeared to Prada because of that, because since Prada 98, which is, you know, the depth of where I go to it, is like there is a level of simplicity there that is, you know, understandable from the consumer. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
That's
think the
interesting. I
consumer.
think someone said, "Oh, J. W. Anderson lets his work speak for itself." Prada don't. I guess it's kind of different, like Dami was saying, in terms of like when your customer base is so broad. In some respects, you have to dumb everything down so that you can attract as many customers as physically possible. I always wonder, like I always think to myself, "Oh, this is not sustainable. This is not sustainable," and then every year the brands make more money. So I guess I'm just wrong because like these brands, I'm like, how many is it going to get to a point every single person in the world is going to be their consumer because they just keep making more and more and more money. I'm like, the business people at these brands know what they're doing, man. Because geez, like it's not a
Yeah,
joke.
like because I think it's more to knowing your consumer, understanding them, and then creating a world that they are endeared to, right? Now, the Loewe customer has been endeared to Loewe before JW Anderson. So
Hmm.
JW Anderson had to understand that and then create in that sphere. Now, him having to balance that whimsy between Loewe and JWA is another conversation entirely. However, in the era that we're living in now, we have seen the ambitions of Loewe, and I've been speaking about how um, LVMH has been giving this massive push to Loewe on the quiet luxury side, and there
Hmm.
has been when you go to like the stores, like when you go to the malls and all of these things, and you look at what Loewe has to offer, that is quite different than what we care for in Loewe sentiment. And one of the main reasons for that, and that's the same thing that happens with Bottega, but that's a different conversation. But when we're talking about Prada versus Loewe, there is more simple things that you see at Loewe. But what I understand from the consumer, if I take that demographic and psychographic into consideration, the consumer would be a full client of Loewe with a personal shopper at their attendance. If they're
Hmm.
buying art pieces that are worth 10K, what's to say that they don't buy 10K's worth of Loewe? And Loewe has only
Yeah.
gone from strength to strength for the past 3 quarters. So
Oh
I
no,
think it
they've been
shows in
huge.
that aspect.
I was reading this article that
You
JW
read the
Anderson was
report.
talking about how he was gonna grow Loewe, and they've grown like financially, how much they've grown since he got there is like
Yeah.
totally insane. I can't remember what the numbers were, but I just remember reading it thinking, geez, what do you think about
Uh,
like the silhouettes that Prada is trying to make a thing? Like, for example, for a few seasons now, they've been doing these like super short shorts. The last menswear season, they did these like super short shorts, but it wasn't, they were kind of tighter. They weren't this wide. In this collection, they're slightly wider. What do you think
yeah.
about Prada proposing this
I,
idea of like short shorts with tailoring look?
well, you and I both know that this is not Prada's idea.
Of
Like,
course not. Everyone's
Yoji
doing it.
is, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, I think Yoji does it the best. But it's like one of those things where you have to understand the clientele again, in it. It's like, yo, there is men wearing short shorts and then
Yeah.
there's men wearing skinny short shorts. Now, the tide has turned from, you know, men wearing skinny jeans to more like slim fit, regular fit jeans, right? And all of these other things. Like, I'm talking about the general like concept.
Yeah.
So it's like obviously people that are more in the fashion community are different, right? But there wasn't a time where men who wore those skinny jeans also wore shorts.
Yeah.
Did something happen there?
Yeah, you kind of froze just for a few seconds.
Necessarily letting me see everything, but basically, uh,
You're now
I'll fix it
a
after.
black square, and I think it's echoing, so you need to like close the YouTube tab. Someone, I'm okay with shorts. It does remind me of Japanese styles. Yeah, and across this Milan season, actually, a lot of brands were doing it. So I saw JW Anderson kind of do it. I saw Alyx do it. I saw like a lot of brands were doing this sort of like super short shorts. It's just really interesting. And Maxi, this is a really good point about Prada going the Logomania route. Do you remember when Raf Simons and Mucha Prada were first starting as like co-creative directors, and they had all those runway shows with like the triangular hardware and logos on every single piece, and they've kind of gone away from that. I wonder why they slowly sort of went away from that and then went to being more simplistic. That's a really, really good point you brought up. Like a really good point. Yeah, from that aspect, the more flared shorts are something that men want to wear. Interesting. Short shorts with lace ups all summer. I also think it's quite interesting. You know, someone earlier talked about the footwear. I kind of call it the Martine Rose effect, but I've noticed a lot of the footwear is becoming a bit more square toe. Like I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but across a lot of different brands, and obviously over time we'll focus on all these brands and cover these brands, but I've seen a move to these more like square toe, flat front silhouette to footwear. I wonder if that's just the Martine Rose effect, or if like a lot of brands were kind of doing it around the same time that Martine Rose did it. Because obviously, square toed footwear is not completely unique, but Martine Rose has a way of doing it that I feel like is starting to be replicated across fashion. I wanted to see Martina LV or Big House so bad. Same. I still want to see her at a big house, but hopefully that happens soon. I really hope. I can't lie. I love the square toe a lot. Yeah, I love the square toe as well. I don't know if it's for me. I don't know if I would necessarily wear it, but I don't have to be able to wear something for me to be able to appreciate things. It's just like designers. I can appreciate designers without like seeing myself in what they make, sort of thing. Kind of just have a look at what they posted on their Instagram, a bit of like the detail shots. I really like this like leather. It looks like leather that's been worn in, but in a very, very flattering way. I love that. Okay, here we have the triangular logos on the back. I didn't notice that because in the runway you don't get a lot of like back viewpoints. Very interesting, but I feel like they have definitely cooled down on the logo mania. I wonder if that's because once again, like I was saying, a lot of these guys, their businesses are so robust and they obviously know what they're doing because they make more and more money. So I just have a feeling that anytime they act something, it's because it's not selling. And I'm very surprised that, you know, people were not buying the logo pieces. That is really surprising to me. So Marc Jacobs is the GOAT. My man's all up in the comment section. Marc Jacobs is amazing, man. Marc Jacobs is everywhere, always supporting other designers. I love Marc Jacobs. He's like, I like his energy. He's a very supportive person, especially in an industry where a lot of people aren't that supportive. I'll leave a link in the stream if anyone wants to share their final thoughts about the Prada show. And then we'll move on to the JW Anderson show shortly. You go on a website or stores, every item has a triangle logo on it, even the renditions of past prints. Interesting. Interesting. I might do that now because yeah, I haven't actually seen a lot of the logo, and I also haven't seen a lot of people wear them either. When I think of what people wear in London, there's different kinds of people. There are people who like to dress in that like roadman type of vibe. They wear like the Prada, is it the Copa Americas or whatever they're called, those shoes. Then you have the people that dress kind of minimal and they all just buy like the Prada jacket, you know, the black jacket that Frank Ocean wore, the like half zip. A lot of people have that Prada piece. I've seen that a lot on people. And then of course like the accessories, like nylon bags, nylon like bucket hats. That's kind of the Prada I see. All these like logo shirts. I don't actually see people wearing those on the street like day to day. I don't really see those on people. I personally never see Prada out in the wild. I like the way you put that, out in the wild. Any ever seen triangle pieces, but maybe that's just me. Yeah, I think also my idea of fashion is kind of warped to like, I remember one time I was like, so many men wear like Rick Owens kiss heels, and my friends were like, no, like, what world are you living in? Like, no one wears kiss heels. And I was like, maybe it's because at the time I was going to CSM and there were just so many men wearing Rick Owens kiss heels. So it seemed like everyone was wearing them, but that's like a tiny echo chamber. So sometimes it's really good to get out of my echo chamber, because if not, you'll literally think that like it's normal to do certain things. And it's not like there's anything wrong with like wearing the kiss heels, but I feel like as a journalist, I need a proper sense of like the everyday person, the average person, what they're doing, because it puts me in a better position to understand where culture is going and what's happening culturally in a wider sense. So that's why it's really important not to be in like a tiny little echo chamber. And they bring back the 2005 nylon bag in that season. Yep, they did. They most certainly did. Even fashion people don't wear seasonal Prada anymore as influencers wear them. I also think it's what they send influencers. I feel like these brands tend to send influencers the like super logo stuff. If I was an influencer, and what I mean by that, because I guess I kind of technically am, but like if I was the type of influencer that gets paid to wear clothes or does styling videos or styling content, I would request for the runway pieces. Like, I would not want them to send me some like logo stuff. I'd be like, oh, can you send me the really nice shirt that looks like a shirt suit from the runway show? And someone make a detailed analysis of the rise of whole lot of red carty and a mass non-fashion adoption, sorry, of Rick Owens. That's a story in and of itself. That is definitely a very interesting story. I can't even lie. So yeah, that was the Prada show, but it was quite interesting just kind of like seeing the response to it online. I think most of the people that I saw talking about this collection, if I'm going to be very honest, were really just talking about like the green slime. On TikTok and stuff, what I saw most people talking about was the green slime. And then the other thing I saw a lot of people talking about was the fact that this show, you know, the typical people, oh my God, which men dress like this? Like that sort of commentary, there was that as well. And you get that every season from people. That's like inevitable, but it's just like funny. He said you'll ask for the runway shirt that looks like a suit and they'll tell you it's 6 racks. Yeah, but I'm not gonna buy it though. I'm gonna like borrow it. I'm not gonna buy it. Those influencers, they don't buy stuff, they just like request stuff to wear it and then post it in outfits and then give it back. Or like they buy stuff on Farfetch and wear outfits and then return it. Like that's kind of what most of these people do, which is why I think I'm not a fan of styling content personally, because I just don't want to send the wrong message to my audience. I don't want to like people to feel like you have to wear this or you have to wear that, or depict that I have money that I don't have because I'm literally like getting sent stuff from brands, or I'm literally like buying stuff and returning it. And then people are thinking I actually have this stuff in my collection. Like if I showed you guys my clothing collection right now, it would literally be stuff that I've had for years and years and years. Like Andre Lemista pieces that I've had for 5, 6, 7 years, Yoji pieces that I've had for 5, 6, 7 years. Because I just wear the same stuff all the time. Like this shirt, for example, is the Nike and Martin Rose collab. I bought this like a week ago. So this is probably the most recent purchase. But I wear stuff like this all the time. So this is going to be in my collection for like years and years. And it'll be another one of those like 5-year pieces. So everything I buy, I actually wear long term. And I don't want to depict, if I was doing styling content and feeling like I had to have a new outfit every single time, I just feel like, you know, you're sending the wrong message in a way. I don't know. That's just me personally. What do you guys think? To be fair, let's actually do it. You should do a clothing/wardrobe haul soon. It's very overdue. I hope you film. Yeah, Micah, come to my house. Help me film a collection video. That would be cool. And for all you guys that don't know who Micah is, Micah and I have been friends since childhood. And he recently started his fashion YouTube channel. So definitely check it out if you haven't already. So I think moving on, we're going to move on to JW Anderson, which to me personally was one of the most interesting collections of Milan Fashion Week. Now, I feel like JW Anderson kind of always transports you into these kind of like dream worlds. It's something that he's always done. And there's always like this surrealist sort of new age energy to it. And I think at Loewe, he sort of channels the same energy. But I think at JW Anderson, it's a bit more wild and a bit more experimental, where I feel like in Loewe, what he does at Loewe, it's a bit more refined, but there are still elements of, you know, the surrealist aesthetic and ideas coming through. So this collection, very, very interesting. I'm going to show you some stuff on the screen because it's very, very relevant to the collection. So this is a type of pottery / company called Cornishware. Now, Cornishware, this like stripy pottery in a way, is like basically a type of ceramics design. It's very British, where you have these blue stripes across pottery. Now, this pottery was actually created by a British potter called, I think, T.G. Green. And they've kind of developed these ideas over the years, and now you find colors like this, like green, red, yellow, alongside the blue, but the original is the blue. And for this collection, they actually had a collaboration with JW Anderson, which was really cool. So they had different mugs and different pots and different stuff that JW Anderson, like teapots, that JW Anderson gave as the invitations to the runway shows, which I thought was really, really interesting. And I feel like because JW Anderson is always kind of infusing ideas of Britishness in every single collection. And so it's just the most British thing to kind of reintroduce people to Cornishware, because Cornishware is one of those things that is so distinctively British. Like it's such a staple. It just reminds me of like really old, like rich British people that love British culture and want like bespoke pottery that kind of buy into Cornishware. And there's a really amazing article about this whole story of the Cornishware and JW Anderson on the Financial Times, because he was in the interview, he was talking about how him and Rebecca Rickards, who is kind of like one of the main people of the Cornishware brand, her dad was actually one of the investors that revitalized the company before it died in 2007 because it was under threat of closure. So her and her team kind of worked with JW Anderson and made over like 500 teapots, mugs, cereal, and pasta bowls for the invitations of the show. And she was just really happy at like how much press it brought to the Cornishware brand, and also just the fact that she saw young people interested in something that is very associated with 30-year-olds and older. So I just thought that was really interesting that JW Anderson, I feel like every collection that I see of his, there's always this sort of reintroduction to something British that was kind of old and is kind of forgotten. So I just like those aspects to things. There are some brands where I love to see the budget for the runway show invitations. Teapots are not cheap. Yeah, it would be so expensive to make these. Like I can imagine. And I just want to say a quote from the Financial Times article where Rebecca Rickards was talking about the impact of sort of this collaboration with JW Anderson. So she said, "It was lovely seeing Cornish wear step into the world of fashion, which it's never done before. And it was wild to see bloggers and influencers dressed in blue and white stripes. You realize that the power of the Cornish wear brand had filtered through." Then, to quote what JW Anderson said about this, it says, "Cornish ware is a British household classic, a ceramic that any person would have in their home." And of course, like I said earlier, it's kind of like something that was really huge and it's kind of forgotten. So yeah, it was just really cool that JW Anderson was, reintroducing these things, because Cornish ware was something that came, I think, in the 1920s. So it is quite old. It is very, very old. Very, very nostalgic. Like Maxi said, extremely nostalgic. Remember when Balenciaga were giving out those iPhones as show invitations? Even if they were broken, it's still worth £50 to £100 minimum. Yeah, good point. Charlie and Lola. Oh my god, that's a classic. That's an all-time classic. No way. So now we're gonna go through the runway show. Because to kind of go through the idea, like the general idea of this collection, really what this collection was about elevating everyday clothes, textures, structures, patterns, items that are typically seen in a British home. So that's why in this collection you have kind of like rugby polo shirts, but they're made super thick and the waists are kind of cinched in weirdly in this sort of humorous way that JW Anderson likes to do things. That was one of the elements. You see different knitted fabrics because JW Anderson was talking about how, knitwear is a big craze and a lot of people are obsessed with knitwear now. So he literally just made a look that was just knitted balls. You have a lot of fabrics, like this shirt, for example, and a lot of the shirts had this kind of like deep V cut. But some of the fabrics were inspired by just like fabrics you see around the home or fabrics that you see around the studio. I also find it really interesting because once again, I said his collections always have this surrealist vibe, how most of the garments had this like excess fabric to the side. It's kind of interesting. I wonder if anyone's actually going to buy that. This dress is something that he's done before. This dress is like the idea of like when wind blows a dress sideways, kind of what it would look when wind blows your dress upwards and to the side. I kind of like the idea. It's just funny. This rugby shirt here is a twist on the Cornish wear. It's kind of like a reversal, making sure that there's more blue than white. Even when you look at the set also, the set has a blue stripe through the set, and that is kind of like a reference to Cornish wear. That's why it's like blue and white stripes. He said instead W. Anson goes too hard. He has some really sick pieces. Yeah, I agree. Not the teapot the teapot shorts. That's hilarious. I really love this, by the way, the collarless shirts that are super, super cropped. It's kind of like silhouette-wise, we're also going into Prada territory again with the elongated sleeves. But I find it really interesting that he's kind of, once again, taking everyday basics, everyday things that you would see in a British home and just completely transforming them. Like taking knitted pieces and just making them a bit more interesting. Like, I just think that JW Anderson's so interesting. Like, his way of thinking really interests me. And I like the way that he transforms things. Doesn't make for the most wearable things. And I don't know how JW Anderson does commercially. Of course, he has some very iconic bags like the Pierce bag. So that's probably going to make all the money for the brand anyway. But just looking at what he does as an artist, it really, really fascinates me. JW Anderson is one of those brands where I'm looking at the pieces and I've learned there's no point trying to guess / assume what material things are made of. Just wait to see it in person to find out. Yeah, good point. Good point. I also like the footwear, by the way. These like elevated clog vibe going on. I really like it. Like he just makes things so interesting. Like even if you look at the way that hoodie was moving, it was so interesting. Also, these kind of pieces, by the way, they look like kind of like a mat that you have in the shower. But JW Anderson said that a lot of those pieces were actually inspired. Like when I first saw them, before like learning about the collection and reading the interviews, I thought it was like a reference to bathroom mats. But JW Anderson said there's actually just some 70s, a sofa from the 70s that's in his office. So it's inspired by that. And kind of like I like that he had these interlocking knitted pieces because they genuinely look like the kind of pieces that people knit themselves at home. And then obviously the other pieces that have just balls of wool as the shirt. And I feel like it'll be even more interesting if the same balls of wool that he used in those tops were the same balls of wool used to actually make those knitted pieces. That would be like big brain. That would be serious big brain. We've got some more wind-blown dresses. Jada Renson's probably topping up the company books with that Loewe check. Yeah. Someone said I like knitwear pieces. Majority of this collection was actually a lot of knitwear. This collection is very knitwear heavy, actually. So here we have JW Anderson playing with a vest, kind of just adding random bits of fabric to it. Yeah, so these are the pieces I'm talking about. So it's literally just the shirt that's actually just balls of wool. It would be so interesting if this top, those balls of wool were the same. I need to actually look into it to see if the same colors used in these balls of wool are the same colors of the knitted interlocking shirts. That's big brain. These pieces here are a reference to mop heads. So he's literally made shirts inspired by mop heads, which again is in the theme of transforming everyday clothes and things that you typically see in a British home. Yeah, this I agree. He is good. He uses his shows for ideas, but he's ready to wear in stores is solid, good knitwear. Yeah, I think most of the pieces I actually see that make it to stores are just the bags, the shoes, and kind of like the printed tops that just say JW Anderson. And of course, JW Anderson makes a lot of money doing different things. Like he has the ongoing collaboration with Uniqlo. I own a few JW Anderson Uniqlo shirts actually. And then recently, I can't remember what exactly, but I know there's a new collection. I think it's a sportswear collection that he's making with Uniqlo, like an activewear collection. So that's one way that the brand is doing well commercially. Are mops British? I don't know where mops originate from, to be honest. They're just something that you would see in a typical household. That's all. I also like this silhouette of like skirts with the excessive fabric. Like there's so much fabric on the skirts that it pulls the dress down, which I find really, really fascinating. Even these shirts with just an added fabric panel. It just adds an extra, element to the shirts. Ah, yeah, there we go. A tennis one with a tennis player. Yes, Roger Federer. There we go. Yeah. But yeah, this collection was, to me personally, one of the standouts. Maybe not the most commercial, maybe not the most wearable, like I've said earlier. But in terms of like intrigue, the fact that he's playing with so many different ideas, it's fun, it's funny. Everything he does is like quite comical. There is this like funky sense of humor that he has to his work. It's fun, it's playful, but you look at the collection and you see a lot of things that will sell. Like if you look at the bags, almost every look comes with a bag. I feel like these leather clogs are actually going to be a hit because they look really nice. I like the silhouette of them. There are also other like knitted footwear bits in the collection. There's some nice knitwear that's quite wearable. So I like the balance that JW Anderson has in his collections, where he can show some really, really artistic things that probably no one is going to wear, no buyer is going to buy. But at the same time, he can mix and match that with things that would work well in a store and would actually work well commercially. I think that's the perfect balance. Yeah, it was executed really well. Like even these rugby shirts, yes, it's a play on like typical rugby polos, but they're just ultra thick rugby polos, and I think it adds structure to it, which I really like. Also, these pinstripe looks. This is something that JW Anderson has done before. I think there's it's a reference to also these like pinstripe fabrics in his studio, but it's something he's worked with before. Like he's had this kind of excessive fabric and paneled pinstripe looks. Here we've got some more mop pieces going on. A tiny JW Anderson bag. I find the women's wear more commercial though, less about ideas than pieces, ready to wear and styled in a less extreme way. Yeah, I mean, obviously this collection is co-ed, even though I personally think that all of fashion is unisex. If you were to ask me, so I don't really care about what, like, obviously this is the menswear season, but I've never personally cared about if it's a menswear show or women's wear show, it's co-ed or whatever. I just look at the clothes being presented. And obviously I understand that majority of people in the world don't see all clothes as unisex. Like most men would not be seen dead wearing a shirt that was marketed to women, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how there's a more commercial theme going on with the women's looks versus the men's looks, which some of them are styled a bit crazy. The collection screams brunch at 2 p.m. I feel like I missed the look. One of my favorite looks. Oh yeah, that's JW Anderson wearing a rugby jersey, which is really cool because that was a reference to his dad. His dad was actually a rugby player, a rugby international player for Ireland, if you guys didn't know. His dad is actually like a really famous rugby player, and he's still a rugby coach right now, actually, last time I checked, which is really cool because I think that rugby jersey is also unreleased, which is cool because he kind of like, in a way, launched slash unveiled the new kit to fashion. That was a really cool moment. And JW Anderson said in an interview that the reason why he wore that to kind of, you know, kind of like in memory of, well, not in memory because it's not like he's dead, but like just to say thank you to his dad is because it was Father's Day. It's kind of cute. It's kind of cute. Yeah, rugby is an underrated sport. If you know, you know. Hey, we used to play rugby in school. Rugby's fun until you get tackled so hard you can't breathe. But yeah, till then, it's fun. It's fun when you're running really fast and dodging people and people can't catch you. But the moment you get tackled, it's not so fun anymore. Here are some more like detail shots of the collection. Kind of like the deep V-cut hoodies. I've noticed across a lot of collections this season as well, there are a lot of like V-cut silhouette things going on. Like Prada did it, JW Anderson did it. A lot of brands were doing the V-cuts. I just find it so weird that every season there's things that every brand does that's really similar. Like this season it was a lot of brands doing the super short shorts and the V-cuts. Like a lot of brands doing it. I always wonder, did brands like contact each other and they're like, okay, you can have all your ideas that you want, but we need to collectively have these really short shorts, and we need to make sure that everyone has a deep V cut in their collection. Like I always wonder, is this like some collective thing going on? Like what is actually going on here? This collection screams gooseberry and cinnamon yogurt. I love this piece, by the way. This piece is kind of like a, from the collection, kind of like a worn in leather coat, which, or it could even be like a reference to worn in leather furniture that would be in the house. But I just like kind of how the leather looks worn in. It's just kind of nice. This is the wool shirt. What are we calling this shirt, guys? What's the name? What name are we giving this? The shirt made of just balls of wool. So what do you guys think about the collection in total? Micah, if you're free actually, hop into the live because I want to know your thoughts about this. And of course the Prada collection. The yarn shirt. I love that. I love that. But yeah, I think in terms of like what interested me, I think this collection definitely interested me the most of all the collections this season. I thought it was actually the most interesting of the bunch. These are just like a look on some of the bags. And this is where I say once again, JW Anderson has the perfect balance because these bags are going to sell like hotcakes. Like I already know they're going to, like JW Anderson bags sell anyway. These shoes, if they're comfortable, I'm not going to lie, I can see myself wearing these. Like with some wide trousers that sit nicely on the, yeah, maybe not the pink color. The brown, that's all me right there. This color, that's me. Black, I just need to figure out if they're comfortable or not. Because sometimes a lot of fashion things look sensational aesthetically, but you wear them and your feet start bleeding. Literally. Some more looks. I just love how exaggerated that like excess leather panel looks on the shorts. And also the hems are raw. Just so interesting. So interesting. These are some of the more knitted pieces. Hello there, Mr. December.
Yo, I only tap in for a bit. I'm doing my taxes. So I had you up on the side and I was sorting transactions.
Good luck with that, bro.
Yeah, long day, bro. Long day. I like this collection. It's not my favorite JW Anderson collection, but I like it a lot.
Why do you like the playfulness of it, or is it it?
No, I've always been I've been saying this for a while actually. I've always been really attracted to things that are like inherently British. Something about them like really intrigue me. So that's why I love like Martine Rose. So a collection like this is gonna capture me like quite quickly, just because like you feel more attached to it, I guess, than like when we're looking at certain American designers making references to maybe pop culture that I'm familiar with, but it's not really something that I'm nostalgic about. It's more something that I'm familiar with. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think those rugby shirts are knitted, right? They look like it anyway.
They look knitted, but I won't know because I didn't cover the show, so I wasn't up close to the clothing.
I think they look cool to me anyway. It looks cool. But
yeah, it's hard to know really what any fabric is looking at pictures in a runway video, unless you're like up close.
I feel like it only got like that as of like 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yes, because all these designers like doing this optical illusion crap.
Yeah. How do you say it? Trompe-l'oeil or whatever it's called.
Trompe-l'oeil, or however French people say it.
Said, oh, it's leather. It's silk.
Meanwhile, it looks like leather, but it's actually denim. It looks like denim, but it's actually leather.
No, it's a cool collection though. I think as well, if I remember correctly, JW Anderson's quite good at like watering down runway pieces into ready-to-wear pieces in the store. So 100%. Like it won't quite be the same as the runway, but it will be like very similar in a lot of ways, but still quite wearable.
Do you think that comes down to just styling? Like he styles things more extremely in the runway and then pairs it back, or is it also kind of like a curation of what?
It's either at JW Anderson or at Loewe. I can't remember. Either way, it's under JW Anderson. That happens a lot, but it's like they just make the pieces different. most brands do it anyway, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
But when it's like stuff like this, where like the mop stuff, for example, I'm sure they'll find a clever way to like make it a lot more wearable once it hits the stores.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like for context for the audience, in case you're unaware, like when you go to the showroom of most brands, I feel like a lot of people just think the buyers are going to see just what they've seen on the runway. Like showrooms are vast. So, especially with bigger brands, you'll see the looks from the runway, but also like pared down looks of things on the runway. Sometimes you might see stuff that didn't even go on the runway, like permanent collection stuff in the
Yeah.
showroom. Like there's a big variety of things that buyers buy. That's why a lot of the time, like you'll see a store buy things and like none of this was even on the runway, but that's because in the showroom, like they had all this permanent
and it
collection
goes
stuff.
vice versa as well. A lot of the stuff on the runway have no intention of being mass produced for
Exactly.
consumers. Because remember as well, like a runway is a display of what a house can do. Obviously, the highest level of that is couture. But like, if you're not a couturier house, like a runway is a display of what you're capable of. It doesn't mean, oh, we're gonna sell this. It just means this is what we can do in this season if we want. Like,
Yeah,
this is what we want to show you guys.
yeah, 100%. What did you think of the Prada collection?
I didn't care for it. But I never do. I never do. So
Why do you?
I didn't care at all.
Why didn't you care for it?
In fact, I don't think I even read the show notes because I saw the collection. I was like, I don't want it. I don't care.
I mean, the show notes are what they are. It's very complicated ways of saying very, very basic things, as designers like to do. I feel like
No,
they
you
feel
know,
like
sometimes
using
you
big
read the show notes
words.
and you feel enlightened, but like,
Well, if you read Rick's show notes, you feel very enlightened.
mm,
It just depends on the designer. Prada normally is a lot of jargon, and it's just like, okay, so you're basically explaining to us that you've taken a silhouette of a shirt and you've transformed it many different ways, and then you've used all these words like architecture and structure and around the body to kind of just describe that. It's just what they do.
this JW Anderson footwear is good, man. I think it'll sell well. The footwear is really good.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I just need to make sure they're comfortable. That's all.
Footwear is good.
Because yeah, high fashion shoes, comfortability.
Maxi mentioned Birkenstock. Have you seen all that stuff about Birkenstock at the moment? About how they're going to go public.
Really?
Birkenstock are potentially going to go public for the first time, like ever. And
well, I guess they want to raise funds and then become $1 billion
apparently,
brand.
like, it's valued at like 4 billion or something ridiculous.
Already?
Like
so why are they going to go public then?
More money, I guess. Apparently, it was bought for like 2 billion a few years back, and then before they go public, people are guesstimating that it's valued at around 4 billion, and that's what they think it will settle at.
Interesting.
But it's quite mad when you think about it, because I feel like Birkenstocks are really in right now, and a lot of brands, high fashion brands, are making like Birkenstock equivalents, if not just straight up collaborating.
And collabs, like Rick Owens collabs with Dior. Yeah.
I feel like people who aren't collabing with them are just making their own alternative, which is,
true.
I guess, kind of what we're seeing here. I mean, I could see some of these shoes, people trying to decide between a Birkenstock and these.
Even like, I feel like in menswear now, there's like a clogs trend going on.
Yeah,
that is kind of the Birkenstocks effect.
Definitely.
Like everyone has some sort of clog / mule that they have. Even like Martin Rose has her mule, and everyone has like their version. I think that is definitely like the Birkenstocks effect.
But yeah, this shirt is so nice. Go back one to 108. Oh yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, the rugby shirt. Super structured rugby shirt.
That's hard. I like that a lot.
Will you be buying any of the collection, sir?
Funny enough, JW Anderson is one of those brands that I don't think I've ever bought directly from the brand.
Yeah, I think the only pieces I have are the Uniqlo ones.
Yeah.
You know the panel shirts I have, like the blue one and the grey one?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are JW Anderson Uniqlo.
No, the Uniqlo collabs have been really big though. I feel like, was JW Anderson the first one that got like big back in like 2016? Or have I made that up? I feel like the first JW Anderson Uniqlo collab was the first Uniqlo collab where I was seeing it everywhere and like people are really talking about it, like, oh, Uniqlo.
So there've been like big ones, like even I feel like what's her name? Jill Sander,
Was that not
her
after
collab.
that?
Well, she's had other collabs like way before. There was a
Oh,
recent one, but she's had some like years and years ago. I feel like her collabs always like a lot of people talk about
yeah.
them.
I think a lot of fashion people,
So yeah.
come out the woodwork for the Jill Sander ones, but I feel like less fashion people are interested in the JW Anderson ones. Like a lot of like people who don't consider themselves fashion guys are still interested. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, interesting. So I think next I was gonna move on to Gucci, but we're at the halftime break right now. So
There's a
we'll talk.
halftime break.
Yeah.
I'm dead.
Halftime break is the sponsor. So this video is sponsored by yours truly, me. Subscribe to the Patreon. The link is in the description.
This
On my
guy.
Patreon, I have a book club going on right now. So right now I'm reviewing How Luxury Lost Its Luster. And I've also been going through like reviewing Kingdom of Dreams on Patreon. A lot of people have been enjoying that actually. So if you want to join the club, you can join the Patreon, support what I do on the channel. So yeah, that's thank you to today's sponsor, myself.
Wow. Wow.
Why need a sponsor when you can sponsor yourself? So next we're going to talk about Gucci. I'm not sure. Have you seen the Gucci show?
Yeah, I looked at it. I haven't read the show notes though.
Yeah, they didn't really have a show. It was more like so with Gucci, it was kind of like an installation, which is why I feel like me talking about this will be very fast because there wasn't really much to it apart from the fact it was an installation. They were celebrating 70 years of the Horsebit loafer, obviously something that was made by Aldo Gucci in 1953. And this was, I think, it was on the first day of Milan Fashion Week that they had this like really big installation. So what they had was, you know, kind of like different artists, and they got different artists to kind of transform and play on the Horsebit and the Horsebit loafer and create like custom spaces. So if you go through their Instagram, you can see, and there's like different artists talking about like what they've done with sort of like for the Gucci installation, like with the spaces and stuff. There are also like a lot of old references to old Horsebits, a lot of like Tom Ford references, as always. Even like a Tom Ford heel, I think in this room was a red heel was hanging. Yeah, that one was hanging from the ceiling. So yeah, it was a cool installation, but I feel like I wanted to use this time to kind of talk about the direction of Gucci and where
I was
Gucci is
literally
going
about
in
to ask
now.
you that. I was about to say, what do you think of this?
Yeah, that's more what I wanted to talk about because this collection was really like just like ultra commercial, wasn't really too much to it. So ever since Alexander McKellar left, obviously I've been following what's been going on with Gucci very closely. And the reason why he left is now very clear that it was financial reasons. Because I was reading an article in the Financial Times not too long ago where Francois Pinault literally invited one of his close friends to be the head executive at Gucci to kind of switch it up because like nothing was working. When someone like Francois Pinault is literally like, I'm going to get one of my personal people who is his thing to like fix a business, you know things are going wrong. So that's going on. And even the collection since, you know, Alessandro Michele, like the collection since have been so weird. Like no identity. They've just been like throwing everything at the pan. Like there's streetwear looks, there's tailoring looks,
What I
there's
find
this
weird
look.
about these luxury houses as well is like, I mean, I haven't looked at the Gucci financials to be fair, but like it'll be something like when they say, "Oh, it's not going well," the brand might have grown by like 5%, but they didn't grow by 25%.
They were growing financially, just not at the
but just not
rate
as much as
that.
they want, and that's enough to like drop someone. It's quite interesting because especially
they're kind of unrealistic in a way though, because obviously when Alessandro Michele came, let's say the brand might have been growing 10, 15, 20 plus percent year on year. But maybe it just gets to a point where when you exhaust the customer base, maybe it's not because
I think there has to be a point like that, but then other luxury houses are operating as if that point doesn't exist. I mean, if you look at like LV, they just grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, and it's just not stopping. So I guess when all your like peers and competitors are growing a lot faster than you, maybe that makes you a failure, even though you're doing numbers that like other businesses would dream of.
And I think it comes down to also the benchmark being other brands. So
yeah,
these brands are comparing their financials to other brands' financials, which is why to them a 5% increase might be a failure. Where to me, I'm like, bruh, like that's a lot of money.
And these are already brands that are pulling in like billions a year. It's not like, oh, we were doing 100,000 and now we've grown 5%. No, it's like, oh, last year we did 8 billion.
Yeah,
And we're trying to do 10 billion next year. Like,
yeah, it's. I
the
don't know.
girlies
The
are
landscape
asking
of
for Tom
fashion
Ford.
is just
That's funny.
crazy. What's that?
Someone said the girlies are asking for Tom Ford. Bro, my guy's retired. He's chilling.
Yeah, Tom Ford
Sitting on
is
a big
sitting on
fat
a
fortune.
billion right now.
Yeah, sitting on a big fat fortune.
Ever
Chilling.
since, what did he sold like his fragrance line to, was it Estee Lauder or like
Mm.
one of those like French
Didn't he net like
beauty companies?
1.5 billion from the whole
Yeah,
ordeal?
it was like a billion or more. So Tom Ford is chilling right now. He's probably in some like mansion
Yeah,
right beside the beach, sipping a
literally.
porn star martini,
Gucci's
martini.
in a
Sorry,
weird
just like
place
doing
right
what he's
now.
doing. But
The
yeah,
problem
it's
is
just they're
also,
in a very weird spot right now. Like, I don't know what direction they're going in. The collections look confused. The
mm,
looks, the clothes are confused.
mm.
It's almost like, you know, when a brand just looks in disarray, the collection also
Yeah,
looks in
you
disarray.
can tell. And
It
I guess
looks like they don't know where they're going.
what also puts them in a weird place is that Gucci traditionally up until now under Michele has been like very maximalist, very vibrant,
Mm,
very ostentatious. And now when you have trends like quiet luxury and you have it puts a brand like that in a place where they're like, oh, what do we do? Do we follow the trend? Do we just try and stick to our guns? We're
right.
already lost already. Like it just adds to the mix, you know what I mean? Whereas when you take a brand like Prada, or like even like what's it called again? Stuff like the Row, where like now that these things are in trend, okay, let's just keep doing what we're doing. We're up.
Right.
But for a brand that was literally doing the complete opposite, and they've just lost their creative director, it's kind of like, oh, what do we do now?
Hmm.
That's what I think, anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. LALC said the problem is also that Gucci is a big machine of caring. They're too dependent on the creative director, though. Yeah, that's true. It is. I'm trying to think what makes the most money at carrying Balenciaga, surely.
I don't know.
It probably actually no, because Gucci is big, man. I don't know. It's probably between Balenciaga and Gucci. But those two brands are both in disarray. Like literally, their two cash cows are in disarray.
Do you think Balenciaga's in disarray?
In terms of like, I feel like there's still a stigma around Balenciaga and like
Oh, of
buying it.
course,
I
of
feel
course.
like a lot of people are still buying it, but I feel like there will be a big customer
But
base
I mean,
that.
financially, did they even take a hit?
Mm, well, it depends what you mean by a hit, because these companies operate in billions. So
Mm.
for them, instead of making 10 billion profit, if they make five, to them that's a hit. But like to me, it's like, yeah, but it's still profit. So
I remember. Well, I need to look into it. I feel like they didn't lose that much money.
okay, Gucci and YSL top sellers, and then Balenciaga. Yeah, YSL is like, in fact, YSL. There's a type of YSL customer, like a rich woman that only buys YSL and only wears that. I know a lot of those type of people. I know a lot of them that live in LA. I know a lot of them that live in New York. That customer is not going anywhere anytime soon. Um, but yeah, Balenciaga, I just feel like there's just a bit of a stigma in terms of like buying it because of what
Mm.
happened.
No, I think there's definitely a stigma, but I remember around the time that it was during the full thick of it, stuff was
Yeah,
still selling out. So I was like, oh, clearly, like some people just don't care, and like
yeah,
fair enough, they're gonna buy the stuff. So I was always under the impression that like it didn't hurt them financially
yeah.
that much, but maybe I'm wrong.
He said Demna's Balenci is over low key. Yeah, I think my issue with Demna is like, because I'm a big fan of Demna. I like his ideas. I like the way he thinks. I just think that he's had a bad run since the Balenciaga thing. I think he's just not. He needs like some PR person, because like he's just been going in circles. Like I remember there was one show note where he said that, oh, we're moving away from kind of like meme culture
Oh
and
yeah,
trend
yeah, I saw
culture. And
that.
I'm like, Demna, you made that. That is you.
But
Like,
he said no. It was more nuanced than that. It
but
was
the way no, but the way he
It was like I
framed
joined
it,
fashion and I was never interested in celebrities or
yeah,
meme culture,
yeah.
but
And
somehow
I
it
was
found
like,
its way at Balenciaga, and I was like, huh?
you're the creative director. What do you mean by that? So it's just a lack of accountability and actually just saying that you were responsible for doing this and going around in circles. Just put your hands up and say, we made a mistake. Yes, I made this, like, I'm responsible for like kind of memeing fashion. I want to move away from it. Cool, we'll move on. Don't kind of try to distance yourself from something you created. Like, it just seems a bit disingenuous.
Bit weird. So do you
So
think?
I don't know. I haven't been a fan of what he's been saying recently. I just think he should leave that to PR. I feel like he should stop making statements.
But do you think he
But I'm
should
a huge
stay
fan
at
of
the
his
house?
work, though.
Do
Sorry.
you think he should stay at the house and just change his direction? Like, what would you want?
I just think it needs a different designer. I think not like I've had enough because I like Demna's ideas. It's not that.
Because
It's just that I
I
just
think
think
it's easy to, and I say this lightly, but I think it's easy to let um the scandal kind of cloud what you remember of Balenciaga in the sense of like just before that scandal, they were up, bro. No one was
yeah, but
tired.
I was already saying that a lot of what he was doing was getting monotonous. Like in terms of like let me break down a Demna Vesalia Balenciaga show. So close to the end, they're going to be like some sportswear looks. Yeah. At the start, you're going to get a lot of black looks. You're going to get very flowy silhouettes that are always inspired by kind of what he was doing at Vetements, which was like these flowy silhouettes inspired by like Orthodox Christian priests, which obviously like Georgia is a very Orthodox Christian country. Um, like it was just the same
I
references.
know,
Like
but in terms of especially commercially,
at
bro,
the
people
end,
are
like the
on it.
last three looks are gonna be like remember before he did couture collections at Balenciaga, he would
Yeah, yeah.
always leave those like last three looks that were couture level looks.
Mm.
Like I could literally break down like every single Balenciaga. It got to a point where every single Balenciaga collection, I was literally like, yep. Here come the Orthodox Christian silhouettes. Okay, cool. Okay, now we've got the sportswear.
No, but I feel like
Okay, cool. Now
that's
we've
that's for someone like you or I who's like literally watching everything like a hawk. For like from a commercial perspective, bro, I've never seen Balenciaga so up. Like before the
yeah,
scandal, bro,
commercially they were on
it-
top. They were.
everything
They were.
everything was Balenciaga. Everyone was buying Balenciaga. It was all over my Instagram feed. Don't forget there was the whole Ye Kim Kardashian situation where Balenciaga seemed to be fueling all of their looks and everything they
Yeah.
did. I know they were really up. So obviously the scandal meant that they had to take a step back. But I'm surprised that they've chosen to now 180 the direction they're going in from like a design perspective, it feels like, because it was doing very well, to my knowledge anyway.
But it's interesting because I want to see how Kering kind of gets outside of this whole thing because yeah, like Gucci is a kind of in disarray. You're kind of relying on that. Balenciaga, people don't really know. Like, yeah, it's just kind of weird. YSL is definitely YSL. Those customers are not going anywhere.
What's weird is me personally, I don't know any Saint Laurent customers, but I know
Really,
I know I like.
I don't know any in the
I don't know
UK.
any.
I don't know
Yeah, in
any
the
in the
UK,
UK,
yeah,
but
I
the
don't know
people
any.
I know that are Americans that are doing quite well. And like the women I know that wear YSL, like a lot of them are lawyers, like really highly paid lawyers. And so that's what they wear to work. Like YSL as like a uniform.
Interesting.
So they wear YSL suits. And because even if you think of like back into history, like Yves Saint Laurent himself, like his philosophy of like empowering women with power shoulders and tailoring. So a lot of women that are powerful people in business kind of like YSL as an idea in general, and they like wearing that kind of tailoring that empowers women. It's the kind of tailoring that isn't male gazy. It's the kind of tailoring that is very like like powerful, like broad shoulders, sleeves are structured. So that I feel like those customers aren't going anywhere because they buy the exact same stuff every season and they spend a lot of money on YSL.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Kering's a weird one right now, for sure.
Yeah, people buy YSL like real fashion, not merch. Yeah. Yeah, they're buying the actual suits. They're not buying like t-shirts that say Isama
Yeah,
on the front.
this KK person is literally talking about the era I was talking about. They said Asian Instagram full outfit Balenciaga professional fit pics in brutalist background core. Bro, I remember when it was like this. It wasn't even that long ago. It really wasn't even that long ago.
That's
So
hilarious. For me, the shoes are a big part of the power the YSL suits held during the show. Yeah. I don't know. That's interesting, but yeah, I guess that's the whole shebang with Kering and kind of like what's going on with Gucci. I think the last collection that I wanted to focus on today was actually Alyx. Because Alyx is one of those brands where I feel like, I'm not sure if you feel this way too. I feel like Matthew Williams catches like unnecessary hate. And I actually like a lot of what he does at Alyx, not necessarily Givenchy, but I feel like Alyx is the brand that has kind of like built this distinctive look in a way. It's kind of like tailoring inspired, utilitarian in a lot of ways. Sometimes can be a bit dark, like what's his name, Lancey Foucault. Functional utilitarianism kind of thing going on. And why I think his brand really interests me is he's always the first to like adopt a lot of things I feel like he doesn't get credit for. Like he was one of the first designers I heard talking about integrating blockchain into fashion so that you can like trace the origins of a garment, and that way like fashion could be a bit more transparent. And he's still working on integrating that into his brand. He was the first one of the first designers that was talking about like 3D printing footwear, and he was one of the first to
be
make
fair, yeah,
a 3D printed foot. Like he does such interesting stuff. And if you compare the budget of a brand like Alyx to the budget of a brand like Dior or whatever, I feel like he ends up doing way more interesting stuff than those big brands, but he doesn't really necessarily get the credit for that.
I don't know. For me, the issue I have that I find every season is I know if I like Alyx, it's unlikely I'll like Givenchy that season, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Like it's rare that both of them come across very strong to me. One always takes a hit. I think this season it was Alyx that I preferred to Givenchy.
Yeah.
But last season it was Givenchy that I preferred. But I don't know. I think what I think he doesn't get enough credit for is that his work does have a distinctive look. Like there's a look to Alyx. A very familiar one at that.
Yeah, and I feel like I just like the fabric manipulation that he always does. Like it's so interesting. Even like in denim, for example, he's found a dyeing process that uses less water. It's like all this different stuff that people don't talk about. Like Alyx is so like technical and so like fashion forward. It's why the Moncler Genius collab with Alyx always made so much sense. Because it's like a very utilitarian, functional.
I'm surprised that didn't go on for longer.
Technical brand. It went on for a few seasons though. It was quite a while. It was like a few years.
There's only one I remember. Maybe I stopped following it after.
No. There were a few years that Alyx collabed with Moncler. Like, so it's just really interesting. And like at the end of the day, when it comes to like looking at the runway show, it's kind of all stuff that we've kind of seen from Alyx. But I just kind of wanted to talk about the aesthetic more generally because I just feel like there's a lot of stuff that Matthew Williams does, especially considering his budget, that I'm quite impressed. I'm like, okay, interesting. And I also feel like he doesn't get credit for influencing damn near every single brand that has come out of LA, not mentioning names. I feel like if you know, you know. But like, okay, like, you know this, like, for example, like a piece like this with the way the eyelets are and the zipper and the silhouette. There are so many LA brands that copy everything to do with Alyx, like the silhouette, the eyelet, the hardware, the shapes, like so many brands.
Oh yeah, no, it was the footwear. This season I really like the footwear, all the boots.
Yeah.
were
His
so
footwear has always been strong, though, don't you think?
hard. Yeah, but it's been a while. I think it's been like 3 seasons since I was like, oh, I really like that.
Mm,
Like a lot of the boots are all ones I just happen to like. I would wear personally.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
really cool.
No, the
And
footwear, I've always liked the footwear design of Alyx. Like,
I think it was either last season or I think it was last season that he introduced that new logo as well.
mm,
I thought was like pretty slick. It reminded
the
me of
like,
like,
yeah.
you know, when Balenciaga started using the sporty logo.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Kind of reminds me of that. Like, just yeah.
Like the whole technical fashion,
Mm,
and it kind of works with the quiet luxury theme
yeah.
because it's like
yeah. Yeah.
no logos apart from a few, but even the logo doesn't really look like a logo; it just looks like two lines, like an upside
Yeah.
down V. Um, so it's kind of like it works with the quiet luxury thing. But
Mm.
the funny thing about the quiet luxury trend, and I've like had a few interviews in with magazines where I've mentioned this. I find it so funny that people, when it comes to quiet luxury, they talk about, oh, they're like, oh, if you know, you know, and I'm like, yeah, but you're wearing the exact pieces that characterize quiet luxury. Like you're wearing the
Mm.
exact same like Laura Piana cap that you saw in a TV show.
Yeah.
Like, like that's not
No,
like
I mean,
if the point is supposed to be like, and that's what happens when people just don't buy clothes they like and they're trying to fit into some trend or like fit into some idea. You end up just like turning it
but
into
what it
another
is
trend.
quiet luxury is actually a thing. But you have the whole wave of consumers who are misconceptualizing minimalism
Mm,
for quiet luxury. So like all these people who are like buying this stuff, they're like, oh yeah, quiet luxury, quiet luxury. No, you're just wearing minimalist clothing. Like
mm.
the fact that I can identify all the brands you're wearing just by looking like means it's probably not quiet luxury. And I'm not even tapped into that kind of like section of fashion.
Yeah, I just think as an idea, it's weird. I get where it comes from though, because once again, like I've said, like since I've been getting into my journalist bag, I've tried to make sure I try to put myself in the shoes of like the everyday average consumer that doesn't consume fashion too much. And these kind of people, the concept of spending $800 on a shirt in any regard is just insane. Even
Mm,
to me, it's insane, but I would like save up for that and then I would wear, because the way I view fashion is I'd rather have one shirt that I wear every day than 100 shirts made poorly, where they're made a certain way by certain
mm,
people, paid a tiny amount, blah blah blah. So I think it's just based on your values and also like affordability too. Um, but those kind of people just think that it's actually insane to buy shirts for that price. So they can't fathom, and talking to more people, I actually understand this to be a thing. The concept of buying a plain shirt that no one knows where it's from for $800 to them is unfathomable,
mm,
which is why a lot of people don't understand that that's actually just a thing that rich people do. That's actually just a thing that, oh, I like the shape of this Jill Sanders shirt. I'm going to buy it. It costs 1,000. Yeah, I'm going to buy it. Like it's a concept, and that's why I feel like it's become a trend, because I think a new generation are actually exposed to the fact that there are actually rich people that do that.
I don't know. I'm waiting. Well, I think it's a trend, and I'm waiting for the trend to end so that people can look back on it and realize it was a trend. But we'll see, because I see a lot of
Yeah,
people.
of course, it's a trend.
I see a lot of
Of
people
course,
act
it's
like
a
it's not
trend.
a trend, like it's a lifestyle and da da da. And I'm like, if you saw it on TikTok and then the next day bought a whole outfit towards it, it's a trend. Like,
Yeah, but that's because the trend filters into different things. So the quiet luxury trend also filters into this idea of what rich people do and an obsession with what rich people do. So on TikTok, I've seen people trying to adopt the quiet luxury look and then also trying to adopt things that rich people do.
mm,
So it's kind of more than just the clothes. It's also people trying to aspire to a lifestyle. So the
Right?
clothing is like the easiest and cheapest gateway to the lifestyle because they can't
It's the
fly
only.
to
It's the only. You
yeah, they
can't wake
can't
up tomorrow
fly
and be a
to San
billionaire.
Tropez first class, but I can buy a cheap shirt that has no logo that kind of looks like the Jill Sanders shirt. So it's like the easiest entry point into a lifestyle of rich people. I don't know why people are so obsessed with rich people and like their life on TikTok, especially. Like even I can't remember this girl, but like there's this girl that they were analyzing like her the way she dresses
Well,
and
Sophia
how it's
Rich.
changed. Yeah, there we go, Sophia Richie, and like how she had this quite luxury aesthetic, and she got her rich man by dressing a different way as if she's not rich herself, and like it's just this weird obsession with rich people that has I think filtered into so many other things.
What I will say is though, I feel like as like fashion people, we're hyper receptive to like
Not even first class private.
as fashion people, we're like hyper receptive to like quiet luxury. But there are a lot of other clothing trends on TikTok as well that are massive. Like, have
Yeah.
you ever looked at how many videos there are made under cottagecore, bro?
Yeah.
Cottagecore is huge.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
say, I hope I haven't made this number up. I want to say 14 billion videos, but I could be wrong. But it's like no, it's like it's an absurd amount, and like we don't talk about it as much. But there are a lot of people who are aspiring to like cottage core and like what that entails in terms of like dressing and a lifestyle. So I mean, I don't know. I think social media and particularly TikTok have just made like so many more trends cycle all simultaneously, whereas
Mm.
before it might be one or two. Now we have like 4, 5, 6 running all at once.
Do you know what my controversial take is? My controversial take is that because of social media and a lot of kids actually don't go outside, they're just online a lot. A lot of kids are being introduced to things for the first time that we see all the time. Like if you actually go outside, like you see the bloke call thing, for example, that now I see
Why do people need
people.
to name that? Why do people
I
need to name
know it's always been a thing, bro. When we were younger, didn't we wear AstroTurfs with jeans
Yeah,
as
bro.
fashion? We
No, but I
wore
guess
that
as
just
well, the
normally.
second you're putting something online, I guess it has to have a name so that people
Yeah,
can search for it.